We're back. T.A. Mahoney, Tales from the Darkside. I brought a buddy of mine in here today, generational T.A. Mahoney customer. Great guy, Sam Marabella. How you doing, Sam?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I wanted to start off. You're one of the people I think about when I think about locals from Tampa and people I've dealt with over the years. I know your dad, your family had Marabella Seafood down there on the mouth of the Hillsborough River, and back then it wasn't all that far from T.A. Mahoney.
Right.
When was your first time in T.A. Mahoney?
Oh, my God.
Were you a kid?
I can't remember when I went in the next room, more or less.
You were a kid,
It was a
though.
kid, yeah. My dad took me down there, and it was like to me, it was like a Bass Pro Shops because it had all this fishing paraphernalia, everything.
Yeah.
Or marine,
Yep,
period, across.
everything you can think
So
of.
you'd look at it in awe, when you go with my dad and stuff. So
Yeah, it was a good experience. I know my father talked about your father a lot, respected him. Used to sell him fish back in the day,
Yep.
when they'd have them good days, a grouper digging, and that's kind of the way I grew up, was on that grouper. Now, you grew up you were raised in South Tampa, West Tampa?
I was born in Tampa General. I was raised in Tampa. My dad was from Tampa. My mom was from Inverness, Florida. So I got to see both sides culturally.
Right.
The Italian side
You got it all.
and the cracker side.
That's right.
So it was a great exposure and a great both types of people, fun to interact with. I grew up going to Gulf Hammock, Florida,
Right.
where there was a movie that was Elvis filmed there called Follow That Dream.
Yep.
And so that's how I got into the hunting end of it. And on the fishing side, I had buddies I grew up with, like the Connors, the Connor Ranch, which is now Connorton,
Right.
bass fishing up there, and Lake Panasoffkee and Withlacoochee River, and that was on the freshwater side. But I've always really loved flats fishing in
So
Tampa Bay.
your favorite fish to catch?
Is a snook.
A snook.
Yeah.
And what time of year do you like catching snook? If you had to take your pick.
When it's not too hot.
Right.
I'm getting old now.
That's right.
I don't like
Wasn't
that.
always that way, though.
No, I could stay out there, get out there and stay out there now. It just, the summers are out for me. Fall, I'd say October.
Yeah, and
in
you
the
know
fall.
that I'll tell y'all something. That's a real snook fisherman right there. Most people will tell you their favorite time's the spring, because really, who can't catch a big snook in the spring? They come out chewing.
Yeah.
You throw white bait at them. We've got tons of white bait all over the bay at springtime. You catch them, you go chum them. The big one eats. You put it in right behind them. It's fairly easy, but I'll tell you something. Not everybody catches snook in the fall. Where do you fish for them? Like an area? Is it a river or?
No, usually, I don't want to tell my secrets, but
Let me ask you this: when's the last time you've been to that spot?
well, believe it or not, it's been a while because I've been busy with my
But you're
partner
headed
in real
back
estate.
there.
But it's over there on the St. Pete side, where I've caught some really nice trout also, and I'd love to eat. That's my favorite. It's trout and bass to eat. But the snook are right across in Pinellas County.
Yeah, there's a lot of good area over there, really, from Safety Harbor to the Clam Bar. If you spend the Clam Bar curving around St. Pete, Pinellas
Okay.
Point, they call that the Clam Bar. As soon as you get
Right.
around Pinellas Point, I mean, from the Skyway, basically inside, on that Pinellas side, all the way to Safety Harbor. I think I've caught nice big snook about everywhere you can think of it, especially spring and fall.
Right. Yes.
A lot of times the fall they're moving back into that area. What's your biggest snook?
Probably 36, 37, something like that. Not giant. I've never caught a real 42. I'll tell you a little story. I was fishing with a good friend of mine, and we were over on Weeden Island on the backside. And then as we're fishing, I look up and I see this rattlesnake going through the mangroves.
Right.
And
Y'all were in a boat?
we were in a boat, and the marine fisheries were tagging about 100 yards down the road, down from us. So we went by there, and they were pulling snook up 42, I'm not 52, 42, 43
Wow,
inches and
nice
tagging
ones.
them. They had netted them, and we told him, and he said, I said, look, we just saw a big rattlesnake. He goes, we see them all the time. Oh my God.
That's not something I'd want to get involved in. That rattlesnake.
No.
That's bad news. I was in McDill back when. I'm not going to say they let you in there, but
Or the creek back
yeah,
there.
the sign was up that said "Don't come in, no trespassing."
I fished
Government
that, yeah.
property. I think we all have, because they really didn't.
They didn't care.
They didn't care until, after 9/11, we kind of had some issues then. The last time I was in there, and this is the truth, I'm telling you, I know we talk a lot of stuff on here that's funny, and it is pretty funny. I pulled in, and you remember where that sign was in that creek, and you pull in and go to the left on that turn. Well, I was at the sign fishing, and I looked up to where you pull in and turn, and it was like, bait was getting showered.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to set it on fire there. I was by myself. I ran the trolling motor all the way up there. Right when I got in casting range, it started to do it again. It was not showering bait. I think it was the Ninja Turtles in the woods kind of getting me back out of there, because it was live ammo hitting.
Oh, you had.
That was after 9/11, and it wasn't. They didn't want you back there. Well, I took off and went on out. I
don't blame you.
I didn't wait for them to come tell me after that. When they stopped shooting, it was time to get out of there. Another funny time there, I was sitting way back past the sign, and I was snook fishing back there, and our buddy John Holmes pulled up in his little Mako. I don't know if he ever told you this story or not, but game warden came in, went to him, checked everything, and of course he needed something. There was something he didn't have. He got a warning, and the guy turned around and left. Never even came in to see me, and never, I kind of waved to him, and of course he shopped here and stuff, and not saying that they don't, but I knew who he was, and boy, John still talks about that.
Oh yeah, Johnny.
That was funny. But growing up right here in Tampa, where I met you was in the store, of course, and around some people. I'd moved into South Tampa, and I'd started snook fishing. And of course, that's where you kind of meet some of those people, and you were one of them that could definitely get on the snook, that if you saw you out in a boat, you knew to go back over there at some point. He was there for a reason. He wasn't there catching catfish. And there's a group of them, you got to admit, your Shelton Bucks and Baldwins and yourself.
The Connor boys.
Harry Connor would never tell you where he caught a big snook, but he'd love to show it to you. You remember the big snook tree at Gandy Bay?
The big thing that they kept close a secret, Harry did, and a couple of others.
He's giving it out, Harry.
Stump Pass Marine. You ever feed the snook there?
Yeah, I've actually caught a snook there.
Well, what happened was they would wait. They wouldn't fish all day. They would wait till they closed that marina right there, because these huge fish, they were like piranhas. They'd be throwing bait at them, and they'd eat them. They'd close it up. Well, there was a trailer park on the water, about 100 yards away.
I know exactly.
And they would wait for about 30 or 40 minutes after they closed that marina, and that's where they caught their big snook.
And they'd go in there and fish them. I pulled in there one day, middle of the day. Okay, somewhere a lawyer, somebody I've met in here probably told me how they can't stop you from fishing in there.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So once he told me that, I asked him if he was for sure, and he was for sure. He said there's no way, they don't own the water.
Yeah.
Here in Florida, you don't own the water unless you own. You can if it's deeded that way, but in most cases, it's high water marks.
Right.
But there
state owns it.
Yeah, there are people that disagree with that. And at the time, I went in there middle of the day. There was actually people feeding them, and I didn't tie up, but I pulled in the marina and flipped a bait on and flipped it right at the dock, and probably caught the biggest one. It was tail walking, people screaming at me. I told them, no way, you don't own the water. But you know what they did after that?
They put a gate.
Sanctuary.
Oh, okay.
If it's listed, just to let all you Darkside people know, If it's listed as a sanctuary, you aren't fishing in there.
Wow, didn't know
The
that.
state owns the water and you're not allowed in there. Gasparilla Marina down in Boca Grande Marina, or used to be Miller's, and
Miller's,
then
yeah.
right there in Stump Pass, all that now is sanctuaries where those fish are
Well,
safe.
that's good. It didn't bother me.
It doesn't stop you from sitting outside the wall. You
Yeah.
can sit out the wall, and if that bait swims up, you know.
That wall, they all disperse anyway. They come out of there after the marina's closed. So,
Yeah.
and that's how they started catching. We followed them one time.
Right.
So
Caught
anyway,
them in the act.
Caught 'em in the
and
act.
that's a fun time there. When you
Well-
catch somebody who's trying to keep a secret and he's a buddy of yours, that's a good time right there.
yeah, it's funny. You never know. And that brings up about the guide you brought up earlier about my brother.
Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick. It was one of the, we may get into it. We're going to start into it right now. I was kind of breaking into the big snook thing in South Tampa, right? And I'd met Sam. I knew Sam from coming in the store. Everybody
Right.
was shopping here, shopping at the other store. And there was like this little tournament that went on. And it was, the first thing they'd tell you is invitation only.
Right.
Like, hey, man, I want to go to that invitation only. What do you mean? Oh, yeah, you got to be invited. So I was trying to get invited. And I remember the first year they gave me the thumbs up. You know, it was that who's who of Tampa, up and coming, right? All the big names were down there, fishermen, and, of course, Baldwin catches big fish. You catch big, all of us. Dave
Yeah.
Mulder, great fishermen.
Yeah.
And all those guys are in it. So you're really competing against the best. And if you've never been there, Boca Grande, Florida, one of the best places in the
Yeah.
springtime to just fish, period. Not too hot. It's beautiful down there. It really is. Really nice place. Not just tarpon. That's where
Right.
they go after all those tarpon. But once I got okayed to get on that, I'm ready to go. I'm going on the tournament. I personally, I'm going to tell you my take on it. When I grew up in Brandon. What's everybody think from Brandon? They think they're the toughest, right? Because that's the way it was back then. And if you grew up in South Tampa was the toughest. Well, we used to go out to Davis Island when I was a kid and kind of, cause problems. And we thought people from South Tampa were fairly easy. Okay, they weren't as tough as us guys in Brandon. Of course, you're a kid, you're thinking this.
I
and
gotcha.
the furthest thing from reality, but that's what you got in your head. What impressed me one time, that tournament, I was down there and I believe I saw you and your brother Charlie and the publics down there or something and talking. We were all talking about a good time. We got 3 days of fishing. Maybe we had a pre-fishing day it was a big event. It was a good time. John Baldwin, he put on
He did.
a good
He did
tournament.
an excellent job.
At one time, I imagine there was 50 boats in it or
100.
something. 100, wow.
Yeah.
And that's invitation. They had a Calcutta. It was a classy tournament.
Yeah.
First one I'd ever been in. There was weeks of stuff, whether it be auctions and Calcuttas, and it was really, I liked the way he did it.
Yeah.
If you were nobody, like if you didn't really fish but you wanted to be in the tournament and just have a good time, your Calcutta, your price to get in was next to nothing. But if you win that tournament, you're taking everybody else's money, right?
It became big bucks.
Next thing I know, I'm in the tournament and I see your brother Charlie with a cast on. And this is something, all you people, this is when I realized that people that aren't from Brandon are tough too, and that they don't take crap, that they're not just running their mouth. But tell us what happened.
Well, we were fishing.
Good fishing story.
And as we're going, we were 75 yards off the shore, and pitching. We thought it was a good hot spot. Well, all of a sudden, here comes another boat, and he comes between us and the shore.
And he wasn't in the tournament.
He wasn't in the tournament.
Yeah.
I end up yelling at him. He comes over to our boat, and there's another Dennis Lopez and another guy named Mark Tyre in our boat. And
At least you had a lawyer in the boat.
the lawyer, that's right. Well, it's funny because basically this guy goes, I go, what are you doing? You're cutting off our lines. And he said he was a guide, and he had 2 people in his boat. He goes, this is my area to fish, like he owned it. And so we had some
That
words.
didn't go over well.
No, we had words, and he put his boat next to ours, and he and I just, it was like you were playing in football. We both hit each other, wrapped up, and went right in the water. Luckily, it was chest deep. So as we're grilling and throwing punches and everything, my brother jumps in to break it up. He just said, "Hey,
Doesn't
okay."
this sound like fun?
He gets the guy hit him. My brother had
That
not
was
hit
a
him.
mistake.
That was a big mistake because my brother's no small man
No.
either.
No.
Charlie cracked him,
Yeah.
and the guy rocked back and he said, "God, I've never been hit that hard before." And he got back in his boat and left.
It was over with.
And that
right
was it.
then.
But Charlie had broke his hand. And well, the next day, Mark Tyre, who was on our boat, ran into the guide at the marina. He was down there getting ice or something, and he recognized the guy. And the guy, Mark said something to him. He said, "You know, these guys could have you for assault because you jumped on another man's boat without his permission." But anyway, it ended up, the guy said he had an argument with his wife and he was all upset. That was
his excuse
His
for getting
excuse.
cracked one
Yeah.
good time.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't suggest you do that at the pier if somebody pulls up on you, but it was pretty. And didn't he finish the tournament?
Yeah.
Fish, it went down, got a cast on, everything's good to go. Let's get back. I just can't throw the net.
He had some Crown Royal, and he took his medicine, and it helped the pain.
Yeah, he
But
was able to muscle
He
through
was,
it.
yeah, he was.
Did you at least win anything in the tournament that year?
Golly, you know,
It definitely wasn't about winning. It was a good
It-
time
it-
with good people, for sure.
It certainly was, and it was a, the guy thing. You know, everybody tell their stories like that,
Right.
or something different. How the big snook got away, or big redfish.
There's always
it was all
those.
about that. It's like hunting. Hunting's not about hunting.
Right.
It's about being around other people that are like you and like the same thing and like to tell the same stories.
That's right. And put
What
you
you do.
there. Well, I appreciate you coming in, Sam. We got another segment coming
Okay.
up. We're going to talk some more hunting, fishing, good times.
Excellent.
And I appreciate you coming in. We'll be right back. We're back, part 2. T.A. Mahoney, Tales from the Darkside. I got my buddy Sam Marabella with me. A lot of history in Tampa here. Been here all his life. We've been talking fishing, snook fishing. You know, I'd ask you, do you remember that tree at Gandy Bait and Tackle with all the snook heads? If you got a 40-inch snook, you were able to cut it off there. Bill was...
Bill Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good guy. He called rank the other day on me. I was trying to get Chris in, his nephew, and to talk about some good times up there at Gandy Bait, because back in the day, if you didn't go to Gandy Bait, you weren't catching fish.
Right.
I mean, that was the place to be.
My dad used to go up there and bug the heck out of him. He loved him,
Yeah.
but he said, "Your dad wears me out."
Yeah. Bill's a good guy. I go up there and see him once in a while if I'm swinging by. That area over there has totally changed, hasn't it? It's even, off topic real quick, what were they thinking when they dropped the crosstown as you have to turn left for the people going to the boat ramp? So they got to merge cross traffic and get to that boat ramp from South Tampa now. Is that the most ridiculous thing?
They almost closed that boat ramp.
I know it. We pushed for that not to.
And these developers were trying to do an end around.
A park. Little special little fancy pants park.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, with 3 boat stalls. I mean, that would be for us boaters, and especially the people in South Tampa. What a great boating community for sure. And that's why when we moved from downtown location, we were forced to move by the aquarium. We didn't want to go that far.
Right.
We wanted to stay, and we're probably within 5 or 7 minutes of that old location. Right here by downtown, and to keep some of those people. But you got to have a place to launch your boat.
But you have great access right here. If you'd have been in anywhere downtown, it's all for walking
Yeah, it would have been
distance.
tough.
And now you've got easy to get. I mean, I gave myself extra time to get here. Ran into some heavy traffic, but it moved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
It's right here in the TA Mahoney. It's in the heart of the monster for sure. You got all
the
these
monster, yeah.
the veins going. That's what my buddy used to call it, and all the I-4s and 75, and we're just kind of right here where it all jumbles together. And I don't know any area locally that's not bad traffic. You know, people will say to me, "You live over there? That's bad." And I go, "Where do you live?" Because I haven't seen it good.
You know, my partner and I, we were down in Apollo Beach looking at some property, and all those tomato fields south are gone. Everything's being developed.
Yeah.
Bexley's is up there on Pasco County, Connerton, and all the smaller developments. It's just amazing how many people are moving to this area. And you can see it at the boat ramps too.
Oh man, I see it everywhere. I just came. I was fishing offshore. I was telling you about, and I was at Anna Maria, and you know, it's like I was asking my wife when I got home, do people come down here and they got like 9 people walking down the road in the middle of the day, and they're walking in the middle of the road. And then I kind of creep up with the big monster steel bumpers on it. I don't get too close. They hear me coming, you know, it's a diesel.
Right.
But they look at me like I'm out of place.
Yeah.
No, I'm on the road. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, but it's getting.
When we grew up, it was so. You had Wyomama down there, Ruskin, East and South Hillsborough County were desolate. They're rural to desolate, not anymore. It's
No, it's a lot
it's
different.
tough.
Even you up there, you spent a lot of time on Connor's Ranch. Now, where was that at? Aaron Cutoff Road,
It was
41?
41, 52, and Aaron Cutoff. They had 10,000 acres.
And you spent a lot of time there,
Well,
hunting, huh?
what happened was Mike Connor, he and I played baseball, football together, and we grew up together. I actually invited him to Gulf Hammock first to go up there because we had dogs too, and we used dogs up there and everything, and it was pretty rustic. And then he started inviting me out to Connerton and or Connor Ranch, and that's how we got started on that. I mean, it was 30 minutes out of Tampa, where Gulf
That's
Hammock's an hour and a
unbelievable, isn't
half. They still, Swift Mud has about 3,000 acres up there that is not supposedly going to ever be built, hopefully.
Yeah, is anybody allowed to hunt that property?
No, they're not supposed to. I'm sure they're poachers up there, but
Yeah.
no, they will have hog dog. They'll get hog people because those hogs start multiplying. As you know, they multiply very rapidly.
Oh, yeah.
And they go in and they tear up.
Golf courses, isn't that what's out there somewhere? Some of it?
Some of it's a golf course to the south.
Yeah.
Is when they owned a bunch of property to the south too, but it was, I mean, it was pretty desolate when we first started camping, and I started going up there.
Yeah, I know. When we were talking about it during the break, definitely a special spot in my heart for Harry Connor. You know, he was. So many people out there will tell you that they'll take you and put you on a deer, and to have somebody tell you that, what was it, Pasco County?
Yeah, Pasco.
I mean, you're in Pasco County, and they got really world-class bucks. I mean,
Yeah.
some 150s have been killed out of there, and of course, you know, there's been that whole core of woods, when you study about it, that goes from there to Disney, is really a dynamite spot. The world records come out of Green Swamp, which
Yeah.
is that same core of woods. But you know, Harry came in one day, I think I was done hunting up in Georgia. The Florida season seemed like it was a different time of rut
Yeah.
up there. I forget when it was, but it was different than November. It seemed like I was up there with Harry maybe in January.
Could have been.
And Harry told me, he said, "Hey man, I'll put you on your first buck.
Yeah.
Meet me out there." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, call me." And of course, I didn't think necessarily that I'd get the call. I was hopeful, but you know, I mean, that's saying a lot for somebody to take you around here and to kill a deer, because it's just very special to be able to do that and not travel 6 hours or even an hour and a half.
Well,
you know?
they managed their population real well. You know, at one point they had no deer on their property, just turkeys. That's what they did. And it started We in fact had cultivated a deer one time that had an Ocala brand on it. So some of these deer migrated from up north when there was less traffic. I know that in the 60s, I think they were Minnesota or somewhere, we traded some deer.
Michigan deer, I believe it was, yeah.
They were huge.
Yeah.
And you could see the white. They
Right.
had more white, where the Florida deer were a little bit redder.
That's right.
But they managed their herds to where you had some 150s. I think a couple of those I know I've seen. I've got one on video one time that I didn't shoot, and nobody believed me. And so I took it out, and it was during rut. And
Right.
he was busy, so I didn't have the heart to shoot him. But he was a good 10, 12 pointer with
Wow.
a real nice rack.
And you told them you didn't want to shoot him, and they told you you're
They
telling
told me
the
I was a
story.
liar. You're full of, they told me a lot of stuff. But their one brother-in-law, when he saw it on video, he went back there every day that he was here looking for it. And of course, we never
see
saw
it
him
again.
again.
Thing's 5 miles away. There was I was in Canada, and of course that's a different breed of deer. In Canada, they call it the Dakota buck, which is kind of like them northern bucks up there, real heavy boned and solid deer. And he stopped getting pictures of this buck. He got a picture of it 17 miles away on another camera at a different farm. And 3 days after that, he had traveled back 17 miles to that farm.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was crazy. The amount of, up there is like what you were talking about, going back to even 60s and 70s, how Tampa was on the outskirts. Like once you hit, north of Barris, kind of, there was nothing.
Yeah.
My cousins lived out that way, Waimama and Ruskin.
Yeah.
And, I've been to the Keys down 41, and you talk about a long drive with nothing there. I mean, that was going back, of course, back of a station wagon, having a good time. We didn't know anything better. We were headed to the Keys to catch fish.
Oh no.
And I'm sure you've been there a few times.
Oh
huh?
yeah. Down. I've stayed up all night driving and got to where my brother and a couple of other guys were, and woke them up and said, let's go fishing, and fished all day, back when I could do it. I couldn't do that today.
I was talking to somebody about that. I went out 2 days ago. I went out on Wednesday. Yesterday I was out, but I went down there the day before, and you got to prep, right? You got to get your food, and you got to get iced up, 1,000 pounds of ice in the boat. I helped with all that. We left the house at 4:15 in the boat, and we were fishing 83 miles offshore at sunup.
Wow.
Which is about what, 6:45, 7, something like that.
Yeah.
See, it got light about 6:30, but
Yeah, it starts about 6:37.
we had lines in the water at 6:30. We were already pulled back on the throttles, and we started the trolling, went all day. We finally pulled the lines in at 4:30.
That's a long day.
And then ran in. We were back at the dock at 7:40. One motor.
Oh boy.
No steer. We had both motors, but one of those motor steering went out, so we had to come in kind of with the trim and tilt and turning the boat. And of course it's easy when you're offshore and sticking on autopilot. Everything was working great, but once you got into the docking areas, we just had to be kind of careful, and ended up working out. We got it on the trailer, but I'm done. I slept the next day, and I got up, and I was going to be at work today, and I thought, I'm not going to rush in for that. I'm wore out, and I ended up going home by the time you eat. And luckily, this got me motivated and up. I'd have been still just done nothing today on that fishing trip. You talk about wore out. I used to be able to do that and go to work the next day at 7:30.
And go out partying after that.
If that's, yeah.
I used to.
Yeah. It ain't no way.
One time I remember I met a couple of guys in the citrus wildlife management, and I'd been out partying all night. And I got there, and I got in a tree stand, and it was a pine tree. And that thing would start swaying. I almost fell out of it a couple of times falling asleep.
Boy, you're lucky you didn't. I've heard some wild stories, and hunting and fishing always has something to do with those wild stories. That's for sure. I appreciate you coming in today.
I appreciate you
Sam, had a
inviting
good
me.
time. What do you do? You said you're doing real estate,
Yeah, I have a partner. She's actually my girlfriend, partner.
right?
And she's been doing it like 25, 26 years. And so she was after me for a couple of years. Come on, I need some help. You can do this and that. And I'm like, oh man, this is a good way to ruin a relationship. And, but it's worked out real well. She has things that she's really good at. And I just drive her around like I drive Miss Crazy. That's what I say. What do you got me going today?
So you got people that you sell to, buy for.
We have buyers. We've got a couple of investors. We've done listings. We go Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsboro, just about anywhere that's reasonable. We've been spending a lot of time in Pinellas County, but the market's crazy right now. I mean,
Do you see that changing?
you know what? I had a potential customer who called me yesterday, and she asked me that. And I said, I can't tell. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know which way. And anybody that tells you they do, watch out.
Right.
All I can say is cash is king right now, as far as buying. And there's a lot of people from the Northeast that have cash that are moving in, and
Want to get out of there.
and they just want to pop it. And if you're not ready to pull the trigger, you might not get it.
Right.
So it's a busy time. I wouldn't say that people think it's easy. Being in real estate's not easy.
No. Especially if there's not enough. You know what I heard is, and just real quick about it, that we're about 4 million houses behind in the United States, and that's kind of the reason behind all this, buying and selling and everybody trying to get out of there. Hopefully it'll get all leveled out, because I've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of growth.
Yes.
A lot of growth here in Tampa. Happy to be part of it. We all complain, right?
Right.
About
Yep.
the traffic, but realistically, me owning a retail store, I'm happy to have more people here. You
Yep.
doing real estate,
Yep.
you got to be happy for the people moving. You know what I mean? It's part of what we do, and it makes us. But there's very few of us. You don't meet a lot of people from Tampa
No.
who've been here. I mean, there's a lot out there, but as far as friends go and got stuff in common, and like I said, I cherish our friendship, Sam, and I really appreciate you coming out. I wish we had some stories. We had some that we should have.
Next time.
Our buddy Tharp, Chet Tharp, Sam.
I don't know him.
Sam's got some stories. We've been swapping them back and forth. I think we need to maybe have Chet back on the podcast, see
We'll-
when he'll be available.
We'll have
again.
to do. Yeah. Otherwise, any story I tell, it would be an anonymous about him.
That's right. We'll
Because-
just leave his name. He'll leave his name out, and I'll say his name. You're friends with Ober too.
Yeah.
I saw him not a few weeks ago.
You talk about a fishing fool.
Yeah.
That's from going over to Big Cypress. He has a place over there. They've had a trailer for 40 years. To going out in the bay, he
knows where they're at,
he fishes a lot and
Yeah.
crabs. I mean, he's just
and he's another one that ain't gonna tell you where he's catching them. He'll just
he-
laugh at you.
He'll kind of
Probably tell you, but he ain't gonna tell me.
well. Yeah, he's a good neighbor. I got two. I'm one, and the other guy next to me is a retired colonel. So both of them, they'll call me like they did yesterday. They called me up and said, "Hey, you want some fried fish?" I'm like, "Who's going to turn it down?"
Oh,
Pam
wow.
had been making me some stuff in the crock pot, and I go, "Honey, I'll eat that later, but I'm going to go get some fried trout right now."
Man, there ain't nothing better than fresh trout too. I'm not much on it frozen. I won't stockpile it, but if I catch them I go up to the Chaz quite a bit with a friend of mine, and we love catching them trout and redfish, and fresh, you can't beat them. Some
No.
of the best food.
It's good, real good.
Well, Sam Marabella, I appreciate you coming out, buddy, and thanks for coming in, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, Mike.